Local parents are calling for more accountability for schools when it comes to their special needs children. Mike Allen reports on a bill that would put a camera in every special needs classroom in Nevada.
Well, many special needs kids are nonverbal, and this bill, supporters say, would provide a voice for them. SB 158, sponsored by State Senator Scott Hammond, would require cameras to be set up in special needs classrooms in public schools in Nevada to ensure they're being treated the way they should be.
This is really trying to get at those kids who are nonverbal. And if you have a majority of those kids in a classroom who cannot speak or advocate for themselves, this will be a huge advantage for them.
Yesenia Gonzalez has a special needs student who she says was treated unfairly by teachers in the Clark County School District. She says during that time, her son became nonverbal, so was unable to say what was happening at school.
This bill would give a voice to the voiceless. It would tell both sides to a story.
Gonzalez spoke in favor of the bill today, saying teachers would benefit too.
It's a no-brainer. It protects everybody in general. It does, and it tells the story of what happened exactly. There's no more questions. It's there plain as day.
Andrea Michelle Esquivel, mother of 3 autistic children, says one of hers went through a similar situation to Gonzalez's son.
He wasn't able to tell us. He wasn't able to tell anyone because he's nonverbal.
Esquivel says luckily a camera proved her child's case and wants that for every special needs student in Nevada.
That video was my son's voice.
We asked CCSD for a comment on this bill and have not heard back. In Henderson, Mike Allen, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
If the bill passes, elementary schools would have to install cameras by summer of 2026. Middle and high schools would have until summer of 2028.